Good evening. We're going to call the meeting to order at 6:03, our South Kingstown School Building Committee meeting. And we will do a roll call. Dave Palizzetti.
Here.
Kate Massananti, I'm here. Luke Murray.
Here.
Bob Littlefield.
Here.
Chip McGarr. Here. Terry Lynch.
Here.
Jim Manning.
Here.
Mike Palizzetti, sorry. Mike Pedraza, Superintendent Pedraza is on his way, and we're just missing Mr. Sylvia. Is he coming or is he? Okay.
He's in Italy.
Sweet. Good for him. All right, so public correspondence. So I believe we had 5 emails that I forwarded to the body that came in from Mr. Beasley. Various topics from switching to mass timber from steel, and input regarding various opinions and input regarding the facilities. Yeah, that'd be great. Regarding like the external facade of the high school.
Sure. So the first email that we're going to report out today was an email from Mr. Doral Beasley to the school building committee and members of the architectural and design team, as well as the town council. It was referencing the project website. Mr. Beasley's first criticism was that there are 8 current boxes on the website that were meant just to give a brief overview of each, so budget, location, new athletic complex. He believed that maybe previously those had linked to other pages. They never did. They were always intended to just be 1 or 2 lines. That one. His second criticism was that the pictures in the gallery were not up to date. That was true. The pictures in the gallery were updated on Monday. We had made them public on Thursday night, so there was about a 48-hour lag between getting those pictures up. That criticism is valid. We should do our best to get them up immediately after a school committee meeting approval. His next issue was that we did not have the live stream link on the, if you go up, we did not have the live stream link there on the upcoming events. We now have the live stream link linked to all of our upcoming events. So when you click on it, it goes right to the school building committee website, and you can watch the it there. Those were his main criticisms. He also wanted on the bottom of the page, if you scroll to the bottom of the page, Luke, he wanted a link to the South Kingstown calendar and the South Kingstown Building Committee YouTube page. We added those on as well.
Thank you. I appreciate all the updates. And I believe we also, not part of his correspondence, but we did, we have a link to the project team, and it spells out, which I really enjoy.
Sorry, it's the next agenda item. Do you want to take it now?
Oh, yeah, mine as well.
Okay.
So let's open up new business item number 3, discussion around website updates. Thank you.
So as Kate said, we did add a project team tab. If you click on the project team tab, you'll see a large organizational chart. It lists all of the members of the project team, Left Field, Studio Jade, SLAM Collaborative, as well as the very large team that makes up Gilbane's office and supervisory staff. This currently is not hyperlinked anywhere. I was hoping to get feedback if you wanted hyperlinks to Studio Jade's website or to Gilbane's website or to Left Field's website. We could probably hyperlink different portions of the document to those websites. If there's anything else you would like to add to this org chart, standing by to take notes and get those updated quickly.
I'm happy with what you have here. I love that you guys included the town seals that note the members of anyone on the team that is local from South Kingstown, which we have 3, I believe, from Gilbane that are from South Kingstown, and then 2 who are Narragansett residents. So we have local presence, which I like that you highlighted those. So if anybody else has any comments or critiques, we're happy to hear it.
So, moving on from the project team, you'll notice that we updated the meeting and events tab so that now meeting and events automatically populate this page as well. Before it was a manual process. Now it's an automatic process. If we go to the document library as well, you'll see that it has been streamlined. The things that we felt should be most important, should be right up there, are whatever the current design drawings and floor plans were. That's a change, or we had all of the design drawings and plans. So when you click on that, you now have the current. We've kept our school building committee town council presentations active. We've also kept school building committee agendas, school building committee meeting minutes, and if you click on those, you'll see that they're all up to date. And school building meeting recordings, we have a link to where the recordings are located as well. And we also kept financial documents up here right now, just because we find that a lot of people, that when we check the website history, we found that a lot of people tend to go to the old budget summaries to see where things were. It seems to be clicked on a lot, so we kept it. Once we have a interim GMP and design development estimates, we think this is a good place to locate those as well. So we should have those in the next month, and we think that's a good place to look those as well.
The only question I have on this one, Luke, if you can go to that one right there, the school, the school building committee town council presentations. So we have the town council presentation from last Monday, and I asked for that to be linked, and you said it was. Where is that?
Go to the home page. So we just haven't gotten into the library yet. So scroll down. It should be right there. View town committee presentation.
Oh, perfect. Great.
So we want it to be the first thing you saw.
Yeah, thank you.
And this was sent out as well with the biweekly update. We sent it to email, which I'm proud to say now has over 200 recipients, nice. Which is about 180 more than any of my other mailing lists. So, so a lot of people do get it and receive it. So we always attach the agendas to that meeting as well. We also have a link. This just came online. You can see if you go to the home page, next to the upcoming events page, instead of having a picture of the school, right, if you go down, you will see we now have our flyer. So we have that prominently located as well.
So, Chris, the only thing I would make a suggestion on is in the document library, we're doing the town council reports. And those are very helpful because they're consolidated and you just streamline those. Are they on the document library yet?
Not yet. We can do those. I'll send an email. I got my notes right here.
Once we post the agenda, it's a linked document. It's a public document. So if we could just make a practice to go ahead and upload those as well.
Okay. Any other additions, criticisms that I can add to the website? We now believe that this is probably going to be discussed at every single Monday morning meeting that we have. There's a lot of information that comes out, I think, to this project, and South Kingstown is incredibly transparent in getting out that information. So we have now a standing agenda item. First thing on our agenda is website updates for our Monday morning internal meeting.
Are you still working on the FAQs?
Still working on the FAQs,
okay. Yes.
We've got a new set of FAQs that's coming out, specifically related to logistics and construction. We have about 14 of those. They'll be sent to Luke, Kate, whoever else wants to see them prior to us posting so you guys can review them.
Anybody else have any comments about the website that they want to share? Okay, great. Thank you for that. And if we could go back, go back to public correspondence.
So public correspondence number 2 also came from Mr. Beasley. Essentially, the criticism lobbied was that hazard building needs power washing, scraping, and sanding, and that he also recommended that the brown on our new building reflect a newly painted brown as opposed to the brown that is currently on the building. He also proposed potentially changing the color scheme at Hazard. Public correspondence number 3 also came from Doral Beasley. In this one, he was critical of the new design versus the previous design that was sent out, was part of the bond issue. If you remember that one, he's perhaps I think it's a subjective. I think that we're talking about how the building looks like now in these renditions versus the other ones. They're largely the same in terms of the color scheme, the color palette, the uses of gray, things like that. However, it is a subjective comment, and he wanted to make sure we were aware of his criticism of that. Correspondence number 4 was correspondence between, again from Mr. Beasley. In this case, it was correspondence with him and Kenneth J. Burke, PE, Associate Director of the University of Rhode Island Office of Capital Projects. Mr. Beasley asked a question to Mr. Burke about windows and things like that, the usage of windows. The question he asked was largely without context. He just specifically asked about maintenance requirements, things like that. It was addressed on Monday at the town council meeting from an educational perspective as well as an operations and maintenance perspective. Birds, those types of things was discussed on Monday. And then public correspondence number 5. He requested, again, for reopening the discussion on mass timber. Mass timber, Gilbane stated that they were not aware of any tariffs on imported mass timber. I did do a check, and I will do another check now on the Department of Commerce website, just to make sure nothing has changed since I last checked it. There currently is a 14.54% tariff rate on Canadian lumber coming into this country. So I wanted to put that out there. Mr. Beasley also commented that he did not feel that the design and project team has done enough reaching out to a local firm, South County Post and Beam. He did not feel that we had did enough outreach to South County Coast and Beam as well. Those were the 5 items of correspondence we received over the last week.
And then also we had one more from Ms. Martin.
Oh, correct.
About the, do we want to discuss that in the logistics?
I would think, let me set the table here. Ms. Martin has made a request that we shift contractor parking to another place on the site, and we're going to talk about that and the logistics plan. Gilbane is responsible for means and methods of construction, so we're going to work with them to figure out if there's opportunities that won't cost the project or any money or in terms of having to pull back on scope. So we'll discuss that at the logistics. So those were the 6 items of correspondence.
Great.
The other issues, the building, the mass timber, all that aside, one comment that was made is hazard building. Right, and I've looked at it too. It needs work. And so we're going to have a brand new $140, $150 million high school next to a historic building that is degrading. I think it's a fair comment. Mm-hmm. So I would, as a building committee member, like to know when everything gets finished up, what's the plan for hazard? And I know we need to bake up our design estimates to figure out what we're going to have prospectively, but I would highly suggest that if we do have some contingency left over, that we take a hard look at hazard, and if we don't have it, somehow that's got to get done.
So I think it's an easy add in terms of contingency usage because the hazard building is within our stage 2 submittal. So it's not like we're adding in Matunic, you know what I mean, as using contingency to pay for Matunic and requesting an MOA reallocation. I think we would be able to shift that money in as needed contingency with an administrative MOA adjustment with RIDE. It would not require the full Council on Elementary and Secondary Education. There are a lot of items. I think that's probably going to be a choice that we make when we start talking about how we're adding contingency back into the building. And I think we can easily track that as another one of those items to say we're going to be presenting an a la carte menu as we discussed. We might have half tile on bathrooms right now. Do you want full tile height, or do you want maybe $1 million into hazards facade kind of thing? Those will be the discussions that we have.
I always say, you never judge on the 95% you do right, it's the 5% you do wrong.
You're telling
or don't
me,
do.
boy.
So I just want to make sure that, people aren't looking left when they're looking at the entryway saying, what's going on with that? So thank you.
Yep.
All righty. Thank you for that. And that brings us to new business item number 4, discussion, our RIDE SBA meeting update.
So we have several upcoming meetings that we're working on scheduling with the Rhode Island Department of Education to discuss GMP Number one, early bid packages. The first of these meetings is scheduled for the 23rd at 10 a.m. An invite will follow shortly. We're just waiting on confirmation to the group. The additional meetings that we'd like to schedule tentatively on these dates, we're looking at a 6-3 meeting to follow up on our DD review meeting that we just had in preparation for submission to the design review portal. That's what the certificate of that would be. We're looking at another meeting perhaps the week of 6/13. This would be, again, early release package discussion meeting. We're also looking at potentially holding a meeting on 7/21. And then this is, again, early bid results and draft GMP meeting with the Department of Education. This is a bit of an outlier in terms of our typical work with school districts on GMP meetings. With that said, I think Dr. De Silva is really leaning into the GMP discussion in this specific district. How there is no set formula for how RIDE approaches meetings with different districts. So this is particularly, I think, his what he wants to do with this district, as opposed to some other things, site design reviews that he does with other districts that he doesn't want to do here. So I think this is his particular passion point for the South Kingstown project, so we'll take all the meetings we have to get past it.
And just to let folks know, who are the folks who participate in those meetings?
It is representatives from both the town, the school, so town leadership, school department leadership, project leadership, and design and construction team. So Luke attends, Kate, you attend, Michael Pedraza attends, Chip, when you're available, you attend as well. So we're well represented. Myself and Kate attend, Phil, Kathy, and Mark Rhodes attend, and Tony Mergita and Mark Moore. It's a crowded room. I think we've had standing room only at a couple meetings with Dr. De Silva on this.
Chris, of the meetings you just mentioned, at the last meeting was Test. Well done. Okay, so of the meetings that you mentioned, at our last meeting we had talked about me needing to be there on the 23rd. I just heard the topics that you were going over. Am I needed at the 23rd or June 3rd of those two? Because it sounded like different topics in those.
Turn it off. Let me just give me 1 second. I'll go over the topics again. So, Chip, for the most part, I think for anything that resembles a GMP discussion, that's probably more of a superintendent level item. Anything regarding design,
So that's June 3rd.
and logistics need to go. We would request that you be there. So, so the first meeting that I believe you should be attending would be it's the 6-3 meeting, which is a follow-up to our DD meeting, which we'll be discussing design elements.
Do we have a tentative time for that?
We're still working with Jorge to set that up. We're looking at 10 a.m. right now as our tentative time where everybody's available.
Okay, so not needed on the 23rd, more needed on the 3rd.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody have any questions about our RIDE SBA updates? All right, that brings us to item number 5, discussion update, new South Kingstown High School IT infrastructure requirements and needs review. Chip, I put this one on the calendar at your request. Do we have any discussion around this at this time, around IT infrastructure?
Yeah, I just asked this to be because I want to make sure that everyone's on the same page with the IT needs for the building. So thank you for putting it on there. I don't really have anything more to say about it other than just say, like, let's make sure this happens, right? Yeah.
So I guess on that topic then, Chris and, I don't think it's Phil, I think it's more Chris and maybe Slam, I'm not sure. Are there discussions, what level, and if you're not prepared to talk about them today, we can table this to another meeting, but we want to make sure that our IT director and group is in communication with our project team to make sure that whatever is needed when it comes down to the IT requirements, that we've got that, we're all lined up.
Sure. Studio Jade is the low voltage engineer for the project. Our engineer, Dave Spangler, has been meeting regularly with Doug Snow regarding the infrastructure and the IT. I'm not aware of any open issues. I can certainly check in with him and report back if we need any assistance or if there's any update we should be providing Chip.
How's that sound?
Yeah, so it really was just, earlier on in the process, there were some things that Doug had some concerns about, meaning that, that we were bidding out some things that were old, that were like originally way back when we first had designs. I think some of those things have been remedied, but I would just say making sure that Doug's good with everything that we're ordering, whether it needs to be at one of these meetings or a different meeting. I just want to make sure that when we are purchasing all that equipment, that it's exactly the way we want it designed, because if we put it in now, it's going to be way better than if we try and retrofit later because we misfired on something like that.
So similarly, Mr. Snow mentioned to me, and maybe this pertains to the I know it pertains to the opening of school, in terms of the potential to have to reroute fiber because of the new access road, and that might need to change because it's currently coming off one street. So, and that connects both internet and our phones. And so that's something that depending on who the provider ends up becoming, whether we stick, I think it's with Cox or if we were to go to Ocean, that each one of those kind of gets accounted for. So that's obviously an important, both in safety and logistics, as part of one of those opening days of school, for the first day of school, if we're going to be creating that access road, and then that's then going to change how fiber's running in. He said that was something new that came across recently, and so just something that as we plan for the opening of school and that heavy, communication plan, that we won't be able to communicate without the internet and telephones. So that would be one that I'd look to add to the agenda potentially.
Yeah, essentially, like in the years where we're using Cox because they're the low bidder, it comes off of either Columbia or School Street, and if we're using Ocean, as the low bidder, it comes from the other one. So which way the fiber comes into the building? Yes, this is like one of the many issues that we deal with. It's like it doesn't come through the same wires. So it's just, I think Doug definitely wanted it brought to attention that like when we're doing this access road, we need to pay attention to that fiber. And in reality, if that access road is in use for 2 school years, which it would be, it could change from one year to the other too. So one year it could be Cox and one year it could be the other. It's based on a bid, so.
My only suggestion is maybe we keep this on the agenda. I'll get a little bit more information over the next couple of weeks. I am aware of this issue of the fiber coming into the building in a couple different directions. Let me get a little bit more technical information on that, but I would like to speak to this again at the next meeting.
Phil, do we have any information on, as of right now, and I know you just said we'll get more information, as to how the fiber, is it buried in duct bank? Was it any as-built on the fiber, anything like that?
I'd have to check with the engineers.
All right.
Any other questions on this topic? All right. That brings us to item number 6, discussion next 3 months of key dates for major milestones and actions. This, I believe, we reviewed this with the town council on Monday, but if...
We did, I'll go through it again, just...
can we put a visual up just so that we
Sure.
can follow along?
Yeah, it's on the website, on the town council presentation. Sorry, Luke.
Good move. Thank you.
I'll just work with your IT guy so I can get streaming rights. Is it? Yes. Sorry, it still says 5168 up there. Oh, 2 passwords now. So it starts on slide 4. Great, so design development are the first number of milestones I'll go through. 5/21 is when we will have our all-day design development estimate reconciliation meeting. We will then, on 5/29, present a recommendation to the school building committee. On 6/5, we're having our public engagement session. This will follow the other public engagement sessions that we have, same format. 6/9, we're looking for a town council approval of DD. 6/10, just because of the way the schedule falls, school committee approval of DD. 6/11 is when our RIDE submission of DD. Design development, DD stands for design development, excuse me. Next is the path to our early construction start. We've already had our first meeting with Rhode Island Energy on the temporary service. On 5/19, we are submitting our Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management permit application. On 5/29, we have our our combined planning board hearing for preliminary and master planning application. On July 1st, we're looking at submitting our foundations permit to the SK Building Department. 7/14/2025 would be the potential approval of a site enabling contract. That would be the first expenditure for really any hard construction costs on the project would be at that date. 7/21, negotiation period for our draft guaranteed maximum price, GMP guaranteed maximum price contract for early work. 8/7, SBC recommendation for an early guaranteed maximum price. 8/11, town council approval of the early guaranteed maximum price, and an 8/12, notice to proceed to begin construction. The ball in the court will be that of the town manager, Mr. Jim Manny, seated to my left. RIDE milestones upcoming. As we discussed, we had our first GMP strategy review meeting, and we're targeting another on 5/23. Design development plan and estimate submission meeting will be held on 6/3, followed by 6/11, which will be our submittal date for design review by RIDE. 6/13, another RIDE meeting on early package submissions. 7/21, another meeting with RIDE to discuss early package bid results and draft GMP, and followed by 8/8, which would be our full GMP at the early work packages. Again, the packages we're considering as part of this early work would be site work, concrete, foundations, long lead mechanical items, early enabling work. Am I forgetting anything, Phil? Long lead steel, anchor bolts. That's something that we've heard in the market right now, is that anchor bolts are taking a long time to get designed and pushed out. So that's what I'm hearing. I know it sounds weird, Mark, but so that's something that we're pushing as well.
Chris, sorry to be a little bit of a pain about the RIDE meetings, but on the up there it says design development on the 23rd as well. Was that changed?
No, that's a typo on this slide, excuse me. On the back slide, let me just go back to it. One second. Let me just double check again. So 5/23 is our meeting to review reconciled estimates in VE log and DD set process.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
That's all of the meetings we have upcoming. There's a lot to do in a relatively short amount of time. We're continuing to be aggressive and work as collaboratively as possible with the project team and the Department of Education to get things moving as quickly as possible. And as you heard on the Monday meeting, we have asked the town council for help. So we have laid out this same plan to the town council so they know how aggressive it is and how everything needs to really go in the right way. So they've been asking for ways that they can help, and we believe we supplied enough information.
I thought Monday night's meeting went really well with the collaboration with the town council as far as if something needs if an emergency meeting has to take place or a decision has to be made, that we can call outside of our normal regularly scheduled meetings if we need an emergency meeting to make sure that our dates are hit. The school committee has given their support in the same manner on Tuesday. If there's at any point in time, if there's some sort of school, from a programmatic perspective, if some decision needs to be made, everybody's ready, willing, and able to close ranks and make sure decisions get made so these dates don't slip. Like you said, Chris, there's a lot of them. You guys are doing most of the heavy lifting, but we want to make sure that we're supportive in any way. And I think one of the big questions came from the town council after seeing all the key dates is the big burning question is, when does the shovel go into the ground? And it really is after August 12th. So once August 12th happens, then a definitive date, I'm assuming, can start to be made. And we can start to pinpoint what that looks like. So, but we're looking mid to end of August is what I see, maybe beginning of September. And on that topic, a big drive from Gilbane and from the project team is to make sure that it's the start of this coming school year, that there's a traffic flow pattern and fencing is up and safety is of paramount concern as far as making sure that the start of this coming school year, things are in place so that there isn't like a temporary start and then 2 weeks later there's another flow. So we're working no distinct promises being made, but it's a focal point of the entire team to make sure that we start the school year off and we're maintaining safety and traffic flow. Excuse me. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns about key dates, milestones, or actions? You guys are easy today. All right. That brings us to discussion, new business item number 7, discussion about traffic and communication plans.
So Left Field is currently working with the design team and the construction team to figure out a way that's easiest to broadcast the upcoming traffic plans, not just for the first day of school, but also for how the truck routes on the job, things like that, socialize when drop-off times and delivery times are. We hope to have a draft plan of that for you at our next meeting. With that being said, we're looking for feedback now for other things you would like us to include in that logistics plan. Like I said, we're going to include the truck routes that we have mapped out. We're going to include drop-off times, pickup times, or blackout times that we're not going to be accepting deliveries to the site, things like that. As we discussed earlier, per Maggie Martin's email, we will also look at see if there are any opportunities to work on contractor parking. Cannot make any promises at this time. It's a very tight site, so we'll take a look at that as well. But if there's any other feedback that you would like us to report out at the next SBC meeting, those were our 3 kind of primary deliverables. We're making sure that we talk about how we're going to socialize the first day of school, how we're going to address this logistics plan, and how we're going to socialize sort of the blackout times and things like that, and the truck routes that people are going to be taking. At least that was the feedback I heard from the town council on Monday.
Anybody at this table have any extra feedback they want to share? Any information we want to hear about?
So one thing that we want to do to kind of get this thing rolling is we have just 9th graders on the first day of school, which is September 2nd. So we want to cap the day with taking a picture of the whole freshman class so that we have it like when they're seniors. So the idea being that somewhere we have and we're looking for suggestions as to the where. Like we have the initial construction site or
that's cute.
in the background, and then so by the time they're seniors, we take the same photo. They're like standing in a similar spot with but now the school's behind that, and we want to start that tradition going forward. But anyway, we don't need an answer for it, but just another thing to keep in mind is like where might that proper spot be, because right now I don't know exactly where all the fencing is and everything. So I just wanted to.
I think that's a good point. We need to probably get a safety officer involved to see whether or not we'd allow you inside the fence line or not. Have seen it done before, but I'm not Gilbane's safety officer, or I don't pay their insurance as well.
Yep.
But we'll figure out a way. If that means we have to maybe not put up some scrim on a part of it for the first day of school so you can at least see through the fence or things like that, we'll figure out a way.
Yeah,
That's a great idea.
I just want to bring it up
Yeah.
now, so it's not like something that's sprung on you at the end, but that we wanted to kind of do that so that it's part of that process.
Will that temporary parent drop-off, will that be one-way, or will that be two-way traffic? One-way only, okay, because I'm just thinking of Hazard parent drop-off as well, and who need to go to Hazard, and I just, in terms of the traffic pattern of people going that way and thinking, oh, well, I don't need to wait in this line, I can turn into the Hazard lot, drop my kid off, and then pop back around. But if they're not going to be able to pop back out that way, then great. I just want to make sure that the students who need to access Hazard, and parents as well, that we take that into consideration. I know that start times and depending on the flow of the day is going to be different, but considering that's going to be not that people don't have patience waiting in line, but that might be the patience area where it's going to get tested our first few days.
And there is a possibility too that it actually makes the traffic around the school a little bit better, because now we have a long road for parents to like back up and drop their kids off in a safer way. So my hope is that by moving the parent drop off up to near Hazard, we actually improve the traffic on School and Columbia Street in the morning.
We sort of discussed item 8 along with item 7. I was going to say we discussed item 8 with item 7. Is there anything else you'd like me to touch on?
So what I would love, I personally understand what lay down means because I've been listening to you guys for 3 years now. I would love it if someone could come up and explain in layman's terms
Sure.
what lay down means and the difference between lay down, construction parking, constructor storage trailers, and then to re-emphasize the hours of operation that there's going to be the loud construction noises that start come September and are going to go on for about 2 years.
So we're required to follow all town ordinances on this project. So the same as any other, even a residential construction project would be what we would have to follow. We do take noise into account in terms of things like putting out the white noise backup sounds as opposed to that loud piercing beep, 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 things like that. So lay down areas on a job site is where we store materials until they're used. In order to keep costs down, you don't bring, every single material doesn't get delivered on its own truck, right? You might stack, you might have your sanitary sewer pipe with your cast iron pipe, with your fireproofing pipe, and we would lay it down on a site until it's needed, until it's used later. So that is what a lay down site is. Generally, they are not loud parts of the construction. It's literally just storing materials until they're used. A contractor parking is a specific item that we would need to have on our job site because we do not want contractors parking in the neighborhoods. That was an early result report out of this school building committee years ago. We were early talking about logistics, that to every extent possible, we need to keep all of our staff on site so that they are not parking on anybody's street, essentially parking in front of somebody's house, eating their lunch in front of somebody's house, things like that. Contractor parking, shifting around this site is going to be a challenge, and we're going to look into it. There are alternatives that we could also explore as well. Not ready to get into any details of those. And then the second item you asked me, what is a contractor storage container? They are just that. For some materials, you can't put in a lay-down area. Electrical components, things like that, they essentially go into storage just like you would see at in front of your house kind of storage boxes. They're generally made out of steel, like shipping containers. They are opened when needed, enclosed when needed. They're not something that people are going in and out of at all times throughout the day. And again, they are just to store items that should not be impacted by weather. So things that would go inside your building as opposed to.
So I know that we would be staying within our town ordinance as far as timing goes, but I'm pretty sure we have, because we will be having students arriving and departing at certain times during the day, and we want to make sure there isn't overlapping between construction vehicles pulling into the site and parents coming and going, and quite frankly, kids walking up the roads going to the school. So all of that, I've been reassured multiple times that is all being factored in. The laydown, so that there is an understanding. So the laydown line that I see near the construction parking that abuts what looks like residential buildings. So there will be a fence, and then there is clearly, as there is right now, there's greenery, there's trees and bushes and shrubbery that actually exists already. So there'll be a fence there. And then the laydown is not an area where people congregate and are super chatty and are yelling and whatever goes on in a construction site that I'm not privy to. So that's just, like you said, there will be a point of when it's being laid down, it will be relatively noisy. But once it's down, it's only being accessed when that material is needed by the folks that are already on site.
Exactly. It might hold things like pallets of bricks. It's not something that is, you have all 8 hours of the construction day, you have people moving in and out of it. It will be used, but it's certainly not the noisiest place I would point out. Right. On a job site. Okay. And then you are correct if I didn't make that clear. Yes, we will schedule no deliveries during drop-off and pickup, but we'll also work closely with Chip to make sure that, if there's a testing day, right, exams day, we're not doing anything that's super loud, right? We'll work around those days. On elementary school projects, we work around RICAS testing days. Maybe it's a day that we do our safety meetings, or a day that we do interior punches or do testing or things like that, as opposed to doing something super loud on those days.
I mean, it strikes me that it's actually quite conducive to the neighborhood as far as the construction and noise is going to be closer to Hazard and the existing building than it is going to be near those residential areas. Is that a fair assumption? I mean, it's going to be noisy. It's a construction site. So
the construction is going to be the noisiest part of this, and not the contractor parking, not the laydown areas, not not any of the other spaces. It's going to be the construction of the building, and the construction of the building is substantially far away from property lines. I don't really have concerns about contractor parking. These guys want to get in and get out, and they're not going to hang out in their cars. They got work to do. There's going to be a site superintendent and a left field representative making sure that they're not sitting around. There's a no smoking policy on job sites. No warnings. You can get booted right away if you're caught smoking on a job site. So we don't have that many concerns there. And again, I can understand other people's concerns. I think this is one of those things that if we can't find a different space for it, there might be a little bit of anxiety in the first weeks of the project, but as I think we can prove that these aren't the noisiest areas on site, we'll earn that sort of trust in terms of these aren't going to be the noisiest areas on site.
Yeah. Well, I think it's good to talk about pretty regularly, just so that's how you come to solutions, and or if there isn't a solution, it at least breeds transparency and conversation. So, and
maybe it's also things just as simple as just setting rules with the different subcontractors. Just like there's a no tolerance for eating your lunch back there. There's a no tolerance for this. We expect you to bring your lunch to the site, eat on site. We don't expect you to be tearing in and out of there for every break and yada 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 yada. Or trying to group, maybe one person goes to Dunkin', not 20 people go to Dunkin', stuff like that.
They should walk to Dunkin'.
They should. They only get a 15-minute coffee, though, or 30-minute coffee. Was it 30 or 15, Mark?
I'm a health coach. I have to say things like that.
It's only a 15-minute coffee break at 9, so.
Run. No, I'm kidding. But I appreciate you kind of exploring a little bit deeper with me on that. And we're always willing to continue the conversation about it. Because it is going to be anxiety-provoking and nerve-wracking up until and even as it gets started. It's new, it's different, it is going to be disruptive in certain hours, and we just need to learn how to,
It's
we want to
also-
communicate through it.
It's forming those relationships. So I'm working with Phil on another job site right now, and we are building at a very densely packed neighborhood. Not like this at all. It's an urban neighborhood in central Rhode Island. And we have these kind of these same concerns, and some of the things we did there was making sure that the superintendent and left field site rep met with the neighbors. You know, I believe that one of those neighbors is now bringing food into the construction trailers because of how well they've gotten along, and just the anticipation. You know, your worst fears lie in anticipation, and I think that just that the communication and making the relationships will help. Every day is not going to be perfect, though.
Great, thank you for that. Any other questions for anybody on the project team about this part? Food for the superintendent of schools. All right, we have a couple agenda items that we need added to today's meeting. Luke?
So I'd like to make a motion to add an update on the Union Fire District fees for the project, as well as another topic on an update on the town technical review committee review process.
Can I get a second?
Is that the motion?
Yeah.
All right, I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Okay, so we have let's start with the fire fee. Mr. Manny.
So we'll just recap it a little so people who are tuning in late or whatever in the process understand. So one of the areas that was that came up that we did not anticipate was the possibility that the fire district, the unified district, could charge a substantial amount of money for fire review fees on the building of the new high school. It is authorized by law that they can do that. It's based on square footage. And it was quickly noticed that the fees could have been up to $580,000, which is substantial, and I don't think we really budgeted for that. I was given a heads up on that by the town of Westerly because they're building a new school, and they ran into the same issue that they didn't anticipate either. So, and I immediately met with the leadership of the Unified District, including the Board of Wardens, and they never intended to charge us that money, but they still had to go through official process to not charge us that money. So the good news is that they met last week to officially go before the Board of Wardens, and they will not be charging us that fee. Now, the Board of Wardens consists of 5 people. It's similar to a town council. They're the governing unit for the Unified District. The agreement we came to was they would not just blanketly charge us $580,000 for that fee, we're very appreciative. They're all taxpayers, they all live in town, so they never had intentions really of doing that. But we would pay whatever fees are associated with doing fire review fees, either by a consultant or that the Unified District incurs, that we would reimburse them for their expenses, and that we would be working with the building officials here that are going to be project managers and so forth, that we would hire an outside consultant for some of it, let them do some of it, and just reimburse whatever their fees are and whatever fees we have to pay. So it's good news, and we got officially, they officially notified me, I think it was Tuesday.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Okay, and Luke, your next one?
So, as we know, the town is not exempt from its own regulations with regard to major land development review by the planning board. So we've been marching on through that process. Phil's been doing a great job with Sam Hemingway from Garofalo. They've been taking the lead. Yesterday, there was a technical review committee meeting. That's a kind of a precursor to the preliminary hearing that we'll be having on the 29th. There was several things discussed at that meeting I just want the committee to be aware of, because I think it's important as we refine the plans, because we're going to go from design development through construction documents pretty quickly here. And my concern personally is that something's going to get missed. So I've been really involved in that process because being a former planner, I know things can go awry very quickly. A couple of things that have been helpful by the planning staff, and they're treading the line too, right? They're town staff, this is a town project, but they have to do their job, including the engineer. One of the things that was brought up is stormwater. At some point, we're going to be pouring a slab, and we will have what was pervious area, impervious area. And so the concern is we're already having some drainage problems on Oak Street because there's some off-site drainage that's channeled that way. It's just the way it exists today. So I followed up with the design team. The engineer is going to be revising those drawings to add some underground infiltration. It will likely add some cost, but long-term, it's going to solve problems both for the town and for the project. So we're going to have to consider that as we get the design development estimates back. But that is a primary concern, and it's a rightful concern, because if we get a major deluge while this thing's under construction and it floods a neighborhood, you can imagine this body behind me is going to get the calls. So we want to make sure that we're responsible. A couple other things, there was some parking that needed some ADA connections, and that was helpful. They gave input there. Landscape, just general suggestions around the perimeter of the site and how we make buffering. The fencing. So right now we're showing an add alternate for fencing on a portion of the site. Where the staff parking is shown integral to the plan. The remainder of the fencing is add alt. I think we need to take a hard look as a committee over the couple weeks to really determine the priority scale of that, because again, once construction starts and this project gets finished, and if there's no fence, the neighbors' calls may come. And smaller, what's perceptively small elements right now, because we're focused on this big building, these are big elements for the neighbors. And that's what the planning board is harping on, which rightfully so. We're protecting the public. Lighting was something brought up by staff, so we're going to take a little bit deeper dive on that. Location of the dumpster was brought up, not from a visual aspect of neighbors or anything like that. It was simply a functional aspect of in the winter where we have it located now, the staff is going to have to travel across an access aisle to get to that dumpster area from a cafeteria that's located in the center of the building. So it's a fair comment. I talked to Phil, said, is there a possibility of relocating? If not, we can justify it. If it is, great. As far as landscape goes, there was a question with regards to whether we met our own regulations and whether we'd need a waiver. There's different ways to achieve the landscaping requirement. We're looking at that. We have a substantial amount of landscaping throughout the site, so I think we'll be fine. But there's some standards as far as islands in the parking lots, et cetera. I did bring up the fact to the team, and others did as well, of, this has to be a maintainable, that's a word, project. So this isn't a shopping plaza where we're going to have a professional landscape crew. So I urge the landscape architect to be pragmatic with the plantings, things that could be easily maintained, things that, think about, we're going to have to think about fence choices. We're going to have to think about site furnishing choices, all of which the building committee should have input on, my personal opinion, because the end product, we don't want any surprises. And those little details, like there's a fence between the parking lot and the access aisle on the north side of the school that is on a 5 to 6 foot island, which means snow's going to get stacked against it, which means it's going to get hit. So are there bollards? What type of fencing is it? Right? These are all design decisions that if we don't make the right decision now, it's going to cost money later. So I'm just urging the design team and the left field team as well that we convene and we look at all aspects of the design before we push through the CDs. So the TRC was very helpful in helping us think through some of the problems. The goal is to answer a lot of these questions before we get to the 29th meeting, with a goal of coming out of that meeting at least by closing the public hearing, if possible. Ideally, we get out of there in one meeting. If we don't, we have enough float in the schedule, we can go to the second planning meeting. So I think it's been helpful. It's always painful to go through your own process. But there was some adjustments made to parking, right, to the entranceways, not shining lights in the neighbors' windows. So I think it's been a good, productive process. Now we just need to move forward and get out of it.
So that meeting was recent, right?
It's yesterday.
Yesterday, and who from this group was there?
Myself, Phil, and Sam Hemingway from Garofalo.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions on this topic for these folks? I have questions about, personally, I have questions about the fencing situation. just the other day, I just happened to make sure I glanced up at it. The particular fence line I think that is most concerning is in the existing school right now. If you go up the hill to the back parking lot, if you're going to an event, there is a chain link fence. Right up against the chain link fence are neighbors' fences. So some neighbors have their own fences that abut our chain link fence. So as part of, we talked about this in the last meeting, as part of the existing process, the chain link fence is being planned to be removed. And if we were to replace it, that would be the add alternate. Now there are, like I said, there are some of the neighbors that do have their own fences that they've lined there as well. But I do agree we need to have some discussions about making sure that whatever we're removing, we're putting back. And if that means that, I don't know if we are allowed to not remove the chain link fence. I think it needs to be removed as part of the process because of the movement of soil and digging up the property itself. But I want us to be really cognizant of those neighbors, as we have heard here, and that I'm sure we will continue to hear at abutters meetings, and again, valid concerns. I wouldn't want someone taking away the fence in my yard, and then now I'm navigating, do I need to invest, putting a fence back up? So, but I definitely hear you, and I agree. And I think the school department has been navigating this particular conversation for a long time. So whether it's the school department that puts it back, or if it's part of this project that it gets put back, but we need to figure out a solution, I think. And it sounds like the planning board agrees that we should have a solution.
Yes.
So anyway, that's my thought. So someone else wants to speak.
No, if I may, and I've been thinking about this since the last meeting, and I worked with high school children for well over 40 years, and I have a deep and abiding love for them, but I also know that they have an affinity for taking liberty with other people's property in order to cut down on their walking distance. And if there is no fence there, whether it's in the morning or the afternoon or the evening time, I do see if there's no fence there, our little rebels taking liberty. So I would suggest that, if it's possible, and I asked a question about the demolition of that fence, if we could hold off on the demolition of that fence until that adult question gets answered, in deference to those neighbors that are over there.
I was just going to say it's a fair point. I'm really trying to figure out how much that adult is and why we're just rolling into the base.
So it's, conservatively, it's about $30 a linear foot for a vinyl-coated black fence. There are thousands and thousands of feet.
Yeah, because it can't be, we can't replace it with another chain link fence. My understanding is what it's replaced with would have to be up to a particular standard.
So I'm not sure, is vinyl-coated chain link going to meet town standard? I mean, because that's an upcharge too. Vinyl coated is an expensive product. It's even more expensive than just plain chain link.
So it's a good question. I think it's a matter of opinion. I don't know in regulation. I would need to check. Often there's fence standards as far as heights and different things. I have to check the regulations to see if there's any particular material requirements.
And RIDE will not let us use wood because it's not a 50-year product. So the up from that would probably just be a typical vinyl fence as well. I mean, if you just look up linear foot for home pricing, which is not on prevailing wage,
it's more than $30 a linear foot.
It's looking at close to $75 a linear foot.
So it's probably pushing 80 to 90.
And we have over a mile, I would think, of fence on the site.
I think more the concern is that particular line, though.
No,
right?
so I heard that resident loud and clear. So she related a story that she had personally experienced where something was going on in the parking lot and a cascade of kids ended up on her property. I think the new site design, with the school being located in a different area, with substantial spillway off to the back in terms of this giant parking lot, but I can understand that having been through a traumatic experience like that, wanting to take as many protections as possible. So I think it's probably going to be, as Luke said, a compromise that you put some fencing somewheres where it makes the most sense, other places where you're maybe further away, you don't. And we ask the planning board for their advice on it. But ultimately, as Luke said, it's the town process. We have to follow the town process or get a variance. So we'll provide as many options as possible.
So I think that another component that is just popping into my head right now is more that this is going to be part of the town recreation, right? Because it isn't necessarily going to be school students over there. It's going to be all sorts of folks walking dogs and kind of meandering around. So I think it's a bigger conversation than.
It is. It's certainly not just a conversation about price. That is just one aspect of this.
Yeah, in addition to the adult, then I think I'd want to get a unit price from the contractor just to, in case we only wanted to do a half mile of fencing, we have that
that's
option.
one of the nice things about this is it's literally one of the last things that we're putting on the site and that we're buying. So it's a perfect, maybe we have some that's base bid, some that's at alternate, and it's, again, comes down to that discussion of we've got this much money left over, we want to do hazard, do we want to add more fencing in, do we want to add more this or that? And
So the other question or comment I had, I guess, is for Luke in terms of the stormwater. So, yes, it was a good catch by those folks. I didn't even think about it. Once you put that slab up and you still have the old school, you're really going to have double the impervious surfaces that you had before. But I'm not sure we're going to do much with an underground system when you have a construction site, because it's just mud and you've got silt fencing and the water doesn't go where it's supposed to go. And if it does go in, it's going to be brown. So I think they have to look at some other options. It might be a temporary surface pool or something like that. But and I'm also, I wasn't aware of the problem with Oak Street, but there's also development behind on Holly Street that is going to impact that. So I don't want to be fixing somebody else's problem, especially if they're a developer. And I'm sure the planning board's looking at that. But yes, we don't want to create more of a problem, but we also don't want to bail anybody else out with our project. So just make a statement. You don't need to comment on it.
No,
but
that's
just
okay.
what I'm saying.
I agree, and it was something identified early from our DPS director, that it's been an ongoing issue. The biggest thing is we just don't want to exacerbate it.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments?
we'll certainly come to the table with multiple pathways for the fencing issue, as I do believe it's going to be some version of as we've been saying, it's going to be a collaboration between the project and the town.
All right. With that said, we can go to business item number 9, open up to community comment. If you could come up to the microphone, state your name and your comments.
Roberta Mulholland. Thank you for getting rid of that shading so that I can print these and read them now. I appreciate that. I like this so much better than the last one. This is potentially something that could become significant. You probably all know our current high school is architecturally significant in Rhode Island. So I like it a lot. I'm glad to hear you talk about the things that were brought up at TRC, because those were things that were brought up by the neighbors at the high school, the forum where the neighbors came in. Question number 1, what's the status of the land swap?
So Sweeney did the yellow brick review. I have the application ongoing. I've been in communication with Paul Jordan. I've been a little bit clogged due to other work priorities, but within the next month, we'll have the application in and moving. There is a question with the new administration, not so much about approval, but a lot of people aren't there anymore. and there was a heavy focus under the previous administration more on the compliance of this program. It's a question of how many people are still there reviewing applications, so I haven't gotten that answer, but
And that's
we'll
too
get our
bad that it's so
application in.
late.
So,
You know, it would have been nice if we had it in there and didn't have to worry about politics. Thank you. Are there landscape plans and topo plans on the website?
Yes, on the site, if you want to go to the site plan.
I just didn't get a chance to look, and I'm looking at this.
There you go. That's what we currently have. If you're looking for a planting,
I mean, an actual topography, or
so
is
if
there
you
any
go to
topo
the
plans?
planning site, because we have a planning application in, on our town website, there are the topographic plans, and Phil, correct me if I'm wrong, there is a landscape plan in our set right now that was submitted.
Yes.
So that would be the latest and greatest that's going to go to the planning board as of now, likely to be amended over the next couple of weeks.
and then there will be, after we submit our design development package to the Rhode Island Department of Education, that will be posted to the website, which will have your topographical, all of your drawings, all 200 sheets of drawings in it. We don't post that until we get approval to submit that document, then it gets posted, but we can get the planning board application up on the website. Would that help?
I can get it if it's on the planning, it's under the
We'll get it
planning
up there, yeah.
department.
Yep.
I can get that. Because I'm looking at the community practice fields. So this is the replacement for Hazard Field. And I thought in the past that I saw like a tiered 2 fields and there were retaining walls. Is that still the plan? And is this going to be at the current elevation of the parking lot? Is the front going to be brought up? Is anything going to be taken away? So what do you see as the elevation of that field?
So we are currently developing a presentation that we're going to be showing at our hearing that provides a section cut through the athletic fields so that you can see from Columbia Street how the site will slope up to that access road from the parking lot back to Columbia, and then how there is a gentle slope across the entire athletic fields. So it will not be a drastic plateau, wall. It's a rise up closer to Columbia Street, and then a slight rise up for the rest of the fields. So I'd say hang in there. We're working on providing the best graphics to demonstrate that to the community.
But it sounds like it's going to be one big open
Yes,
area.
yes.
Cut up. Thanks
Yes.
so much. Thank you. In whole, is the stormwater runoff going to be better with this new project than what exists there? Because that usually happens when we're doing new things and it's going to be better.
So, yes, we're certainly going to make it better. Everyone should keep in mind that the bar is legally relatively low. Because this is already a developed site with such a large building on it, we're making a smaller building and reducing the amount of impervious. But we just don't want to stop at code minimum because we have the opportunity to improve the situation for the surrounding communities. So we are absolutely improving the situation, and we are going reasonably beyond what is required.
Excellent. Thanks, Phil. That's great. Energy efficiency of the building. It still has a lot of glass. Do we have some ratings showing that, all of this glass isn't going to make it cooler in the winter, hotter in the summer?
So we can address that. So there are very specific requirements set forth in the Northeast Collaborative for high-performance schools about the types of properties that glazing must have. We presented to the town council that we're not concerned about the thermal effects of glass with a properly functioning mechanical system. in the building. There are going to be some maintenance or costs as discussed in terms of cleaning glass and things like that. With that being said, we have the education. You were here at the beginning of the meeting when I talked about the context of an educational aspect of a lot of this glazing per the Department of Environment, Rhode Island Department of Education. So a big thing in their regulations is daylighting for all student spaces, as well as the porosity between interior spaces and the porosity of spaces to outside learning environments. So that is something that we have to factor in and be judicious with where we put glass. But yes, there are studies, and Phil, I don't know if you follow me on, but the types of glass we are not going to be single pane, residential. They're going to be very expensive glass glazing systems that will have a proper thermal barrier between the inside and the outside. We certainly don't want to tax a brand new mechanical system that we put inside the building.
Right, thanks for letting me know that was part of the ride requirements. What are these little things on the windows? It looks like little things that stick
I
out.
see Roberta, let me see if I can.
Those things?
Yes,
Shades.
sunshades.
Do those move or are they fixed?
They are likely fixed.
Super. Okay.
So as part of this, we also do a solar study, so how the sun goes over the building at different times a year, and those are designed specific to that study to make sure that we're blocking as much as possible.
That's good. When you submit the DEM application, will that be up on the website too?
We can put that up on the website, sure.
It would be helpful, just so we can all see what's going on. And I know solar panels are not part of this project, but we have flat roofs, and there will be an ability to do that in the future. Okay.
The roof is what we call solar ready, which means that it has the structural support to allow for heavy solar panels to be placed and the ballast associated with them up on the roof.
Okay, thanks. Thank you so much.
Doral Beasley. So I was glad to see the tonight's meeting on the website said it was going to run from 6 to 9. So I believe that gives me an hour and 3/4. Okay, so my communications. The first one that you mentioned on the website, I just wanted to make one thing. So toward the bottom of the page, it's got this. Before it had shortcuts, 2 shortcuts there. There were 2 shortcuts. So my suggestion was to put a third shortcut there that would take you to the YouTube and the calendar. Oh, look at that. Holy cow. I stand corrected. Okay, let's rip that one up. All right, on the one on the Hazard School. So I went over there, took a good look at it, took a picture. So like the email said, those beams, the big beams on the Hazard School are in serious need of paint. But the paint that's on there now is flaking. It's, a big, I don't know if it could have been lead paint. It's, the chunks, the flakes on it are huge, right? So probably would need to be power washed and sanded or something before you put in prime well before you repainted it. So my comment at the end was, if you decided to use a color on the new school, and if you didn't want to always have brown on Hazard, then you could change Hazard to match the new school. And that was the end of that one. So the next one was on my, guess it was a personal preference, that Studio Jade's original renditions, concepts for the high school, to me, even to this day, I think they're just exceptional. Especially that vertical section where they have the town's, part of the town seal, which is the arrowhead. Just, to me, it just pops out. And I was really, what I really disliked maybe the most on the new concept was above the entrances, you had these like white letter, the big block white lettering, like, theater, kind of floating above. To me, that was just, I didn't like that at all. It looked kind of cheap. So I did contact Ken Burke at URI because, they built that new, the Fascitelli, you've been up there, Fascitelli Engineering Building, which is totally glass. The whole thing is glass. And my question was, if you have glass walls, are there problems with them? So it seems like you have started talking about that or not? I thought somebody made a comment that you talked about it Monday or something. I don't know.
So Mark Rhodes, the design principal, talked about the glass on Monday at the town council meeting.
I wasn't there. Can you fill me in what he might have said?
Sure, that the use of glasses in this case is judicious to specific areas of the building that have a dynamic purpose, such as which RIDE fully supports, which is the dynamic student commons on one end of the building, as well as showcasing a very dynamic main entrance for parents and students to the school that reflects sort of the indoor-outdoor environment. We also discussed that I can see the criticism of the Center for Advanced Engineering. That is, there is more glass on that building on the envelope than I think anything else.
It's all glass.
So this is, I think, more judicious with the glass. Some of these windows do look larger because of their storefront systems. With that being said, we understand that there's going to be a maintenance aspect of glass involved. We, however, do not believe that the thermal is going to be as much of an issue as it probably is at the Center for Advanced Engineering, again, because that is an entirely glass building and this is more judiciously used. And that was basically what was talked about. The other big thing, Dorold, as you know, is that the Department of Education has some pretty strict standards that they do enforce on daylighting into classrooms and that sort of thing that they have on, so that we really can't, removing glazing is something that they always really frown upon. We think that SLAM's done a good job, and does that mean that we're not going to take a harder look at it in the value management process and see if there are ways that we can maybe be more judicious with it? No. I think it's something that we always do. I think there are some targets that we're looking at, Left Field is looking at potentially. But we are at DD. We'll see how it proceeds into.
Can you go back one slide or to the entrance one? I don't know which way. Yeah, that one there. So you see what I mean by the SKHS, those numbers?
Yeah.
I don't like that.
It's subjective.
That's me.
I'm not a big, I love the arrowhead on the previous one too. But we'll talk to SLAM and see if there's a better way of wayfinding. And there are other options for wayfinding. It's ultimately the school building committee's decision on those type of aesthetics.
Well, the other thing about the Studio Jade's concept was that where on this one you have those little horizontal two-tone boards down there around the windows, the lower windows, and then on the other side you have like a total wall of them. I much preferred the carryover of the granite stuff.
Yeah, so there,
Anyway, that was,
Yeah,
you-
we understand.
that's all I need to say on that one. All right, the mass timber. So, actually, the first time I sent the school building committee information about mass timber was in April of 2023. Then when you came on board, in December of 2023, Mr. Spiegel, I sent you the same information, and then starting back in last August, I sent a dozen emails about mass timber. Now, Chip, did you go to the Durfee High School?
Yes.
To walk
Yep.
through?
Mhm.
And so did you saw the mass timber in that building?
Mhm.
Incredible, wasn't it?
Yeah, it definitely looked nice.
Yeah. So the thing that bothers me about this is this, that back in February, like middle of February, I sent this, you got, everybody, information that South County Post and Beam had provided mass timber for a brand-new school in the state of New York. So they're in that business. You go onto their website, and I sent you that in this email I sent you this week. It's on their website, right on their website, mass timber. I sent that in February. Nobody contacted South County Post and Beam. I think that's irresponsible, personally. And I'm looking at Mr. Moore because at a town council meeting, one of the nights I decided I was going to go watch my grandson play volleyball. That was the night that somebody brought up the question about mass timber, and Mr. Moore got up and said, "Yeah, you can get it, but it's difficult and it's hard to get and blah blah blah." And I think Mr. Spiegel also said something about it that evening. But that's not what Mr. Bouvier from South County Post and Beam told me in February, and I sent you that information, and you did nothing with it. That's what makes me angry. Because he told me that if you want mass timber, they can get it. They make it, or they can get it. And it doesn't come from Canada. So, the next one was, okay, that's mass timber. Okay, the next one was on the energy tax credits. So let me go now to, this was a, Providence Journal, April 19th. Title of the thing on the front page, "With millions at risk, North Kingstown looks to redesign a new middle school." So it's about North Kingstown's issue with the new middle school. But about 2/3 of the way through, when I was reading it, it says, "The school is also designed with geothermal wells and solar panels, making it the first completely net zero school in the state, which will eventually save the town money." Now, that should be this school. That should be this high school. This is the one thing that when this is all said and done, that I'm most disappointed about. Because I've been talking about net zero, carbon neutral, embodied carbon for almost 2 years. Here we are in a town, a coastal town, whose town beach is barely recognizable. Okay, global warming's real, whether our administration in Washington, D.C. believes it or not. It's real, okay? My son-in-law is a commercial fisherman. The fish that he used to catch 15 years ago are no longer in his zone of operations. They've gone north.
Can I add some context on the North Kingstown?
Can I finish?
Yeah.
Can I finish? All right, thank you. All right, so I sent this email to you guys on the 12th. It says here, here's the latest from Undaunted K-12 on investment tax credits. They still exist. So I don't know if all of you were here the evening that Undaunted K-12 representative came and talked to the school building committee, but they talked about these investment tax credits. I went on the web. I went on all the websites in the last 3 or 4 days. Department of Energy, EPA, IRS, everything that was in there 4 months ago is still there. Whether or not they eventually go away, I'm not sure. From everything that I've read and everything that Undaunted put in their May 2nd bulletin, which I sent you, all of you. I don't know if you, excuse me, Mr. Spiegel, did you send this to everyone, this one here? That one? You got that one? About the energy tax credits?
That was sent directly to the town council and the school building committee.
All right, thank you. All right, so here's the reason I bring this up. Here's Gil Bain's original estimate for cost estimate. This is the one we still have until we come up with a new one in a few week or so. This is the one we're still working with. This was the original one for 160,000 square foot building, and the total cost is $153 million. Now, of that total cost, there it is. I believe. Got it here somewhere. Man, oh man. Sorry. Apologize. Okay, so of the total cost, little over $17 million was. Here's the estimate. There's 3 line items in there that I've yellowed. I haven't sent this one to you yet, but I may not have to after tonight. So anyway, so there's 3 line items on here that are yellowed. And when you add those 3 line items up, you get 17 million something or something dollars. Now, this estimate came out 6 weeks before the results of the test well, the geothermal test well, were released. Which means, in my mind, that this $17 million estimate was to heat and cool the entire high school with geothermal energy. Is that correct? The original one? Okay. $17 million, okay. So what they didn't tell you, what our consultants didn't tell you at that point was that the investment tax credits available for geothermal energy pay back 30% of the entire cost of geothermal. The drilling all the wells, the wellhead pumps, all the piping to the school, the geothermal systems, heat pumps inside the school, all the ductwork, all the HVAC control systems, all the piping, all the electricity. and the labor cost. 30% of 17 million is $5 million. So, you know, when I think about it, I can't believe. So you gave up the possibility of getting $5 million back from the federal government that pays 30% of going with geothermal. Does that sound like, excuse me, Mr. Manny, am I boring you? Okay. Mr. Spiegel, did you have something to say?
The only thing I'll say is that this was litigated in public in a town council meeting with a report from a geothermal specific engineer, Haley and Aldrich. The project team here, Left Field, Studio Jade Gilbane, have nothing to gain from this project not going geothermal. In fact, we would have everything to gain from this project going geothermal. Just as you said, we would be the first real geothermal project in the state of Rhode Island. We would be put on RIDE shoulders. We would have, it would be fantastic. We presented a presentation of the cost, value, benefit analysis that was prepared not by me, not by Phil, not by Mark, but by Haley and Aldrich, who this is their business, this is their job. That report was reported out to the town council. I don't know what else to say about it, Dorold. I know you're disappointed. We are too that it didn't go this route, and we certainly know RIDE is because they let us know every time we meet with them. But that was the decision that was made on the project. We have to move forward.
Well, okay, I get that part. Okay, but here's the sheet from Haley and Aldrich, okay?
Doral,
So
before you
remember
get too much further, it's been 20 minutes. We give you much leeway, so don't get mad at me right now. We let you talk. We listen to you. We read your emails. Please.
This is my last item.
Thank you.
Thank you. So here's the Haley and Aldrich report. And remember when you came with the list of things that you were going to reduce the cost, you know, after the cost benefit analysis or whatever it was called, okay? And you were going to eliminate geothermal. The amount of money that was going to save the project on this slide was $2.8 million. But I don't believe that. I don't know who made those slides. The slides that came from, I believe these were Studio Jade slides. Were those your slides? What's up here?
Yes.
All right, so the $2.8 million cost savings for not using geothermal. To this day, I don't believe that number. Because it says right on that sheet, for 40 wells. Haley and Aldrich's report said 30 wells. So if the 2.8 became 2 million for a hybrid system where you use half of it for geothermal for half the school and chillers for the other half. I guess one more thing here, then I'm done. It's the same thing, I just forgot something. There we go. So, on top of the fact that you might have gotten $5 million back. Geothermal is quieter, it's more efficient. There's no equipment outside the building to hide. The systems, the piping, and the pipes from the well field have a 50-year life expectancy. And the equipment itself lasts 25 years, then probably to 15 to 20 for chillers. So in the long run, you're not going to be saving any money. But that decision was not right, was not a good one.
Appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
So Doral, we appreciate that, and I'll echo what Chris said. We would have all loved to go geothermal. I would have loved especially to go geothermal. But it's not my money. And even using your numbers, you're putting $2 million of this project at risk that you could potentially get it reimbursed. I had a meeting just last week with another firm and part of an energy master plan that we're doing for the university, and they specifically told us they are telling all of their customers not to count on those incentives. They may be there, but you're going at risk for those incentives. And I'm not willing to risk $2 million. And on this committee, the town council, the school committee, no one was willing to risk $2 million, and I'm glad that they didn't, especially when we had a discussion that we can't even afford to put a fence around this project. So as much as it hurts, we don't have an unlimited budget. If we did, this school would be looking a lot different. We're within the constraints that we had. The taxpayers have been very generous to give us a $150 million bond in this financial climate to build a high school for this community. If we had 160 million, 170 million, it's a different story. But you and others got up to this podium for close to a year telling us how 150 was too much money. I think we made the right decision. It was a hard decision. Maybe you didn't, but there's a lot of people at this podium. We can watch the movies or the videos. But my point is, we have to do what's best for the entire community. And raising everybody's taxes at risk for $2 million is not something that anybody on any of the committees wanted to do.
Thank you. So that brings us to new business item number 10, which is discussion action. The next school building committee meeting date and time. I just want to verify, because the way the weeks are falling, so today's the 15th. Our next scheduled meeting would be the 29th. But then because of the way the weeks have fallen, we then have June 5th, the week immediately following. It would be our regularly next scheduled school building committee meeting, but we are using that as the community forum. So we'll be having our business meeting on the 29th here, 6 to 7-ish. And then we will have Thursday, June 5th, from 6 to 8, and it will be the community forum. And for the 29th, if anybody has any agenda items that they want to make sure are included.
Hold on. No. It's the first and third Thursday. It was an early meeting month, so we don't have one. It's the June 5th. Is the only
Oh, so we don't have one on the 29th.
Yeah, we gotta be at the planning board.
Okay. So we don't have it on the 29th. We want to make sure we update our schedules.
Let's talk about this on Monday.
Okay.
Double confirm that we're okay with it. Just double check it, but that gives us plenty of time to get everything out.
Okay.
We're currently on
The way the weeks have fallen and it's like pushed everybody's meeting schedules have kind of shifted a little bit. So, okay, because we had all right, I got it. It's first and third,
So
because
it's
the way the
first and
Thursday
third.
felt.
The
Yep.
first, it was May 1st was our first meeting, so it was an
Yep.
early meeting
Yep.
month. So, I mean, we can certainly have one, but we do have planning board that night, and so I'd suggest
No,
we
yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
Let's take a look and make sure that all our milestone dates.
Okay.
Check out if we have to.
Can you turn your mic on?
We'll just double check all of our milestone dates in the schedule. If we have to perhaps switch so that we can make sure that we're getting everything, we might,
Right.
but
Yep.
I will make sure that once it's decided, though, I send out an update to all of the people on the project list about when the next dates are.
Perfect. Thank you.
I just want to point out too, the third Thursday of June is a holiday, so
Juneteenth.
something to keep in mind.
Yep. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, but so definitively, June 5th, community forum here, 6 to 8. And then we'll TBD the rest. And with that, correct. And with that said, item number 11, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The meeting adjourns at 7:44.